Okay, I got a note from Randy that he's got a family emergency and may be late, or may not be.
Okay.
But we've got a full agenda,
It
so
looks
I
like,
want to begin on time here.
oh, Harry has a lunch here.
Yeah, so we have, okay.
The agenda includes some administrative business for the BAC. Are we recording?
Check.
Okay, we're good. We're gonna get started.
They work on two other projects.
Yeah.
So there's some BAC business that I will cover, public comment, if there's any. And then staff's going to run through the school board goals for the bond, which is a good reminder to everyone on the BAC. And then a question that we raised before is this new insurance program. They will explain why they shifted to that and why that's a good thing. And then we've asked Gabby to go into some detail on who our stakeholders are and how we're reaching out to them, and then get into the 2022 bond financial report. And get through all of that for 8, that'd be a good thing. Aaron, did we receive, oops, I'm sorry. I also should remind us, if we're talking, to please turn the microphone on. We've got a big room here. Sorry about that. Aaron, do we have any public comments?
We did not receive any public comments online or in person.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the Bond Accountability Committee points. I've got 2 points. First of all, on the upcoming report to the school board from us, we're going to follow a format that we've used in the past, and it addresses the items that the board is interested in and is in line with our charter. A couple of meetings ago, Casey requested that we make our presentation side by side with the facility progress report to the board. I think that's a good idea, and that will be on the meeting that the school board will be having on the 28th of May. And to all of the BAC members, you're invited to that meeting and join us. It's at 7 o'clock here on the 28th. Now, while I'm responsible for drafting as chairman, for drafting and delivering the report, let me remind us, is from the whole BAC. So here's how we're going to follow through with the preparation schedule. It's slightly condensed from before, but not bad at all. I've got 1 week from tonight to prepare the draft using the sources that previous meetings that we've had and reports that we've had. And then on Thursday, the 2nd of May, I will send it to the BAC members, and I would appreciate if you could respond quickly. I've got on the schedule 5 days, and if within 5 days you can get comments back to me, that gives me time to address those comments or incorporate them into the report. On Wednesday, the 8th of May, I will send it to Aaron and Casey for the staff review for factual accuracy checking. And I'm giving staff 5 days, which I think is maybe the same as I've done before, maybe 6. So that should be adequate time, I hope. And then get those back to me by Tuesday, the 14th of May. And that gives me one afternoon to address any factual comments that you all have, and then we'll be ready to submit that to the school board on Wednesday, the 15th, which is their milestone for that Tuesday, 28th meeting. And that will be the meeting presentation on the 28th. just relatively, so you all understand, we will have a meeting the next day on the 29th of May, and that's our last meeting before the summer, which is a segue into the next topic. The May BAC meeting, that one on the 29th, will be my last meeting as chairman. The BAC charter calls for the vice chairman to become the new chairman at the end of the chairman's term. So that will be the end of my term, and our vice chairman, Randy Smith, will become the next chair. The charter goes on to say that the committee will select a new vice chair. And that's really the next topic we have. Before I go into the expressions of interest that we received, I should remind us that the charter also calls for the committee to reflect a combination of experience in building design, construction, capital program management, construction financing, planning, budgeting, auditing, and public contracting. I think we've got that in spades on this committee, and in addition, we have it in the potential vice chairman candidates. So I solicited, as you all know, expressions of interest in that vice chairman position. And I am happy to report that we have 3 people interested in serving. Now, the reason I'm so happy is that Aaron and I think as long as we can remember, have had to coax people into this position, and here we had 3 people volunteer. Now, so that you all don't think that there's something wrong with being a vice chairman or even a chairman, I think that the reflection of people volunteering was more that, at least on the 2014 Bond Accountability Committee, about 6 years ago, everybody had served in that position. So volunteering for a second time around we didn't have as enthusiastic as a response. So as I said, we've got 3 people that are interested in serving, and they are, in the order that they volunteered, Keith Hobson, Josh Durham, and John Mitchell. All good candidates, all qualified. And I think that is going to help Randy and help the BAC, work with the facility staff. So the process is going to be at the next meeting on the 29th, or no, I'm sorry, so on the 29th, we will have a vote to see who the next vice chairman will be at that meeting on the 29th. Now, so that nobody feels bad, because we know there will only be one of the 3, so that nobody feels bad with the outcome, you will all get a chance to serve and lead, because each one is for 1-year term as specified by the charter. So there will be plenty of opportunities in the future here. And I think that really reflects good health in this in the constituency of this Bond Accountability Committee. So in anticipation of our vote, and this is to all the BAC members, you know each other from meetings over the last year that we've had. You can also look on Gabby's website under the BAC, and it's got a brief bio of each one of us there. So that could give you some background if you need any. Pardon?
We gave her that information?
She's pretty good. She's stealth. She has it all. But as I say, it's brief. If you want to embellish that, I'm sure if you contact her, she'll help you out. So there'll be a written ballot at the next meeting, and we'll go forward. Are there any questions from particularly the BAC members, questions about the process, the timing, responsibilities, or any others that want to express their interest at this time? Okay. Well, good. We look forward to that. And as I said, I am happy about that. Okay, moving on. Next topic of business is the school board goals for our bond. Darren?
Wonderful, thank you. So, as you all know, probably, when we kicked off this bond program, we were provided with a document. It's about a 3 or 4 page document. It's posted on our website, and it has the goals that the school board has for us for the bond program. There's kind of 3 main categories of goals, and I'm going to go through every single goal here and talk about, how we're accomplishing that goal or attempting to accomplish that goal. So the 3 categories are facility design. What do they want? How do they want the facilities to perform? Managing resources. How are we to manage resources in accordance with their goals? And then equity and opportunities. So, what are our goals as far as community engagement and providing equitable opportunities and so forth? So, I'm going to talk about each of those. I've got them all on the slides. On each slide, you will see I have highlighted certain ones. They don't all line up exactly in a way that makes sense. So I tried to highlight the ones that I was going to address on each of those slides. So there's actually a whole bunch of slides here. And I'm going to try and go through it quickly. And I'm just going to, for each slide, I'm just going to talk about the ones that are highlighted here. And the left column will be what are the goals? The right column is how are we achieving those goals? So for the first couple here, this is relative to facility design. The goal is to create facilities that are comfortable, safe, secure, seismically sound, and also include efficiency and sustainability features to reduce energy use and provide long-term operational savings. So we have quite a few things I've listed here, but really our goal, we're creating facilities that we want to be safe and literally developed for students to be able to grow. So the way we do this primarily is through we have educational specifications and technical standards that drive how a facility is to be made. Sorry, I'm going to jump on all over the place here. We have technical standards that guide, for instance, what are the HVAC systems meant to be like, and within what parameters are those HVAC systems meant to operate. So when we negotiate contracts with the bargaining units, it'll say actually literally a temperature range that the facilities are to operate within. So when we design facilities, we make sure that the systems and controls are able to do that, which in the end creates a facility that's comfortable to be in.
Say, Aaron, a quick question on most of these, as I looked them over, are consistent with the design criteria that was used to design these, and really many of them are fixed at the design stage.
Yes, for this one, yes.
What was there any assessment or formal or informal as those designs gelled to make sure that all of these things were?
Yeah, great
Yeah.
question. So we have a process within our department, a design review process, where our staff, our project managers and project coordinators formally review drawings and designs at schematic design, design development, and construction document levels to ensure that the design we're being presented with is consistent with our technical standards. So it's like looking at the HVAC systems, it's looking at the finishes, it's looking at the electrical components, and all to ensure that it matches with our technical standards. What else? Seismically, our new facilities are designed to exceed current seismic code. So I gave a presentation on this previously, but we designed the new facilities to be immediate occupancy, which is above and beyond the requirement. And then for retrofitted facilities, we're looking to achieve a life safety level. Yeah, when selecting equipment and materials for projects, we're doing life cycle cost analysis. So for Beaverton High School in Raleigh Hills, we did really in-depth life cycle reviews to select systems that are going to be the most cost-effective over the life of the facility. Sometimes a product that's cheaper upfront is not going to be cheaper over the lifetime of the product. Yes.
Hey, since we've got two schools going up at the same time, were you able to get the same HVAC units for each school from the same manufacturer on that?
You know,
Or not? I know you said the controls are going to be the same for the maintenance folks.
Yeah,
I
good
was just
question.
wondering about the delivery of the HVAC units themselves.
Yeah, so each project itself is large enough that combining like an order like that isn't necessarily giving us additional savings. And they're very different facilities in terms of design, so no. Yeah, that's kind of it for that page. Any questions on those ones I addressed? Like I said, there's a bunch of pages here, so I'm gonna move on. Okay, these next ones I highlighted in green here kind of speak to how the design of the facility correlates with the educational goals of the school district. So these would be, aligning with current trends and practices as far as education. So to address that, we have educational specifications, which I've linked down here. The educational specifications are really good and super helpful to us. And what they show is essentially the program for the schools. Shows the types of rooms, the sizes for each of those rooms, the quantities of each of those rooms, and the adjacencies for each of those rooms. So like how many classrooms should an elementary school have? What other support spaces are necessary to be located adjacent to those classrooms? What sort of support spaces do we need in the facility? What does the admin look like? What do athletics look like? All that is really well detailed in our educational specifications. So, when Eric goes to do Raleigh Hills, the design for Raleigh Hills, we hand him that, and it's a really great starting point to give to the architects, and it provides a lot of great information. It's a living document too, so it's, in the last bond, we built some new elementary schools. We had lessons learned associated with those that we're able to implement into the educational specifications and incorporate into the Raleigh Hills project. This one here says that our facilities will be accessible, which certainly is one of our core beliefs, that everyone should feel welcome and belonging in our schools. So, ADA is really a code issue, so we do that anyways. But we also want to make sure that the facilities are welcoming to people. One example I list on here is Aloha High School. So for those of you who remember what Aloha High School looked like before, it had kind of, courtyard entrance up front, pretty steep set of stairs right up front. There was a ramp, but the ramp was sort of off to the side and not particularly nice. Now, though, the school has the brand new entrance. There's a ramp It's much more prominent. It's right inside the front door as you walk in. It's within the secure entrance to the building. It's much more welcoming, much more accessible. Visitors to the building get to enter, a dry, warm vestibule when they enter, and not have to wait out in a courtyard.
Does this include all the requirements of the Disability Act? Like,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, those are literally code requirements. So when we do a project like Aloha, it goes through a really detailed code review to make sure it complies with ADA. We've also done an assessment, sort of more broad, of existing facilities for ADA, and are looking for opportunities to make improvements there. Let's see. Integrate well with and enhance the communities they reside in. So it's an important, like I said this on the last slide, but we want everybody to feel welcome in our facilities. That means making sure that their voices are heard when it comes to the design. The example I mentioned on here was Raleigh Hills. We heard pretty loud and clear from the community that they weren't interested in the aesthetic of our previous new elementary schools. They wanted something really that was more consistent with the neighborhood. And that's what we've got.
Hey, Aaron.
Yes.
One thing back to Aloha, one of the biggest improvements is that the administration has visibility of people coming into the facility now versus
Yeah.
being blind, and I'm assuming that'll be the same for a safety standpoint at Raleigh Hills. So the
Yep.
receptionist and the secretaries have visibility prior to buzzing somebody in.
Yep, absolutely. That's definitely one of our safety
Great.
goals for each project.
There's a big improvement at Aloha.
Yeah,
John, I think that's true for all the new facilities, isn't it?
it is, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, next, managing resources. So diligently and prudently recognizing that the tax dollars we spend are precious and scarce and based on trust. So yeah, absolutely. I listed a few different ways that we approach this, but number one, our technical and educational specifications give us a really good project baseline. It really is a tool for us, not only just to know how to guide the design of the project, but it also really helps a lot when it comes to scope creep. When you're working with different stakeholders to design a project, if you don't have like a baseline standard, it's really easy for things to spiral out of control to, try and please the people that we're designing the facility for. But having that baseline, it really creates equity across the district on all of our projects, and is an important tool for us to manage the resources. We, as a project owner, really strive to make our projects appealing in the market. It's been a market lately where there have been fewer and fewer bidders available for the project, and the owners who are good to work for are going to get more bids and more competitive bids. So that means, having drawings that are good, having, not missing a lot of things, not having errors that create risk for them when they bid the project. Good, clean, clear drawings are best for everybody. And so doing the design review process we mentioned, going through checking for errors, that really helps us in going to market on these jobs. Also being a good owner, so being fair with contractors when we're reviewing a change order request, for instance. Some owners develop a reputation for being really hard to work with. We aren't going to be a pushover about it, but we're going to be fair. We're going to review the merits of the change order. We're going to review unit costs and quantities and all that, and make sure that it's reviewed appropriately with accountability. For instance, this might speak to one of the future ones, but we do audits on all of our construction projects with alternative procurements. So like all the CMGC projects, we do a financial audit after the fact to go through and make sure everything was accounted properly. And next slide. So transparently, this here is all part of the process. We each month are producing a financial report as posted on the website. You can go back and look on the website and have a monthly report for the last 10 years on everything that we've done. We are also doing an audit of our program. So I was sort of speaking of a project-specific audit, but we are going to be doing a program audit as well. So we'll share more on that once we have that, but we just kicked that off. It says additional funds allocated through an open process. So we absolutely do that. All additional funds available will be vetted through a process with the BAC. And it literally requires school board approval to allocate to additional projects. So that's something that we will probably talk about this fall. Oh yeah, I mentioned it on here even. There's a project we'd like to consider for a new cafeteria at Beaver Acres, and want to consider putting contingency funds towards that. But that's something, like I said, we're going to talk about after this summer. So we'll come back with more information and a whole process for that.
Hey, Aaron, the program audit that you're talking about, is that an internal audit or is that our annual audit that we do?
It's similar to the annual audit. It's a third-party auditor, but it's specific to the bond program. So
And the findings are on the...
we've just started doing the audit. So, but the findings, when complete, will be available. Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
And then this last goal here on managing resources speaks to the sale of bonds. So this is something that gets a little bit over my head, but our Associate Superintendent, Mike Schofield, has a lot of experience in conducting bond sales. He's worked for many school districts and done many bond sales, and making sure that the financing is set up in a way that is going to work for us down the line in the future and be most efficient with the taxpayer dollars as far as the tax rate and everything. So we work with Piper Sandlin, who does most of the bond sales for most of the public agencies around here. Really great to work with, and they've done a really good job so far. We've yielded an extra $10.5 million in interest earnings from, after the bond sale, before the money is spent. We put together a really detailed cash flow statements showing when we're going to need the cash to spend for the projects. But so in the meantime, it's in there, we can invest it, and just the sheer quantity of that funding has yielded quite a bit of extra interest earnings. And I think that's that on that slide. Okay, business equity opportunities. So I'm going to actually kick this one over to Jason to talk about. So this first one is business equity, and take it away, Jason.
Sure. So the school board has a goal of 15% of contract value to be awarded to certified firms. Certified firms can vary from disadvantaged organizations to emerging businesses, women-owned, minority-owned, et cetera, and state to state. So we work with a lot of subcontractors and contractors out of Washington State. So some of our requirements are based on what that state might offer. So it's our objective to move our contractors and architects in a direction that helps support that board goal. And we'll talk more about the numbers. We have an update this month in the financial report. So we do our best to attract diverse folks, and sometimes that's through how we choose to bid our projects. That could be maybe instead of bidding 5 similar projects all at one time, we may choose to bid them in packages that allow smaller organizations, smaller firms to bid on our work and our projects. So sometimes we're able to tailor it to try to help attract those organizations. I think we've developed a great reputation of being fair and allowing flexibility in some of those. Currently, we're tracking at around 17+% for certified firm participation, which is definitely above the board goal of 15% and better than we have in years past, which is great.
Do any of your contracts require some of these berry projects? Obviously, the two that are already contracted, there's passed, but moving forward, I know the community colleges, they'll require some of the big GCs to partner with the bids up front with the minority firm. Has that been considered for the procurement?
It is. So we make it an aspirational goal. So it's not like a hard requirement, but it is a goal that we actively manage towards and in a couple ways. The first way is when we do the solicitation, when we are doing the RFP and scoring and selecting who we're going to hire in the first place, we ask them to demonstrate for us how they're going to achieve this goal and show us their past record of performance when it comes to equity percentage. So it's a scored criteria when they're hired. Once hired, we follow up on that plan, say, here's what you told us you're going to do. How is this, in practice? Mostly it has to do with outreach to subcontractors, right? So who are the subcontractors you're reaching out to as you're going through and doing your buyout? Where are you tracking? Where are there opportunities to increase our engagement numbers? Like, oh, your number is low right now. How are you gonna to bring it up for the rest of the project? That sort of thing.
Got it.
But yeah, it's been really successful so far, I'd say.
The alternate procurement method doing CMGC projects has helped that because we're able to have a conversation once the contractor is on board.
Right.
When we're hard bidding projects, it's pretty prescriptive and it's not a hard requirement. It's a goal. So you can imagine those projects can have different outcomes. Although even our hard bid projects, we find that just having the RFP crafted properly has moved us in the direction that we want to be in.
Mm-hmm. Has the same thing been done? Sorry. Has the same thing been done with the consultant side as well?
Yeah, the consultant side's a little easier because to the most part, you're negotiating a contract. A lot of our partners will ask us if we have preferences for different organizations, and we can give them a little more guideline around our equity goals and other organizations and things like that.
It's a lot smaller pool too, so
Yeah.
you're generally familiar with
Yeah.
the who.
That goal, I think 15% for contract value, and then you mentioned 17% was firm participation
So 15% is the school board's goal
for
And-
money.
Sorry, say it
For like 15% of the money will go
15%
certified
of,
firms?
of I would say qualified contracts, right? There are some goods and services that aren't that you can't control in that way, but I'd say
Like buying school, like it's not the total bond amount, right?
Right.
Like there's money for school buses and technology and
Right.
stuff. That doesn't apply. But as far as the contract construction value of
Yeah.
the bond, that's the target.
So professional services that is a bucket that we focus heavily on. Construction is a bucket, and that makes up the lion's share of the bond dollars.
But when you said firm participation, is that
Yeah.
just the number of firms participating,
No,
or is
no, no.
that 17% of the money? Of
Yeah,
that?
so
Okay.
that's of
It's the
money.
dollar
Yeah.
value.
Got it.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to go into a little more detail, and you'll have plenty of time to ask questions about kind of the data we're going to share tonight as well, which I think you'll find useful.
Thanks.
Okay, next slide's kind of same topic. This more speaks to apprenticeships. And this is something that we list as a goal, and we are beginning the process of tracking it in a more detailed way with our contractors. But this is actually literally apprentices, state registered apprenticeships. So this is something done by our contractors and subcontractors. And we include it in the goals. It's very similar to the equity contracting, but it's like actual staff labor hours and how they go about doing that. So there's a lot of different partnerships listed in here that help us reach the workforce to develop that pipeline of workers for tomorrow. It's pretty well known that there's a significant labor shortage that's going to be coming up pretty soon. There are more people retiring from the trades than there are new people entering the trades, and this is meant to help bridge that gap a little bit.
This is a question probably maybe for the board and for the school district. I know it's on the website that there's an automotive piece to the school district. Has there been any talk of trades? Because to your point, the best that we can, bring them into the fold at a early age.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone's
So
built for college, and if they can find a trade, that
Yep,
just as
absolutely.
well.
So the career technical education programs, so the district have been expanding quite a bit lately. Measure 98 a few years ago added a lot of the money to the district, so we've been building out quite a few additional programs. I'll speak to it, or I'll let Jason speak to it on the next slide a little bit, but we're also working on hiring interns ourselves, and we seek out those interns from our CTE programs in the district.
Great, thank you.
One other thing that we're working on too, on the maintenance side specifically for trades, is partnering with PCC for apprenticeship positions that are folks that are employees that don't have the licensure yet, but having the ability to have them continue in their current role as they go through the apprenticeship program and working for us, getting their classes through PCC, and then when that is over, we have a job for them. So we're just starting that process now on the maintenance side. So we are exploring that to kind of grow our own core group of employees.
Okay, and then we could probably talk for a long time on this one. I'll let Jason take. Jason's been deep into this right now, so I'll let him talk about it. But creating career learning opportunities for students within the district.
Yeah, so just like with our equity goals related to certified firm participation and for our apprenticeship requirements, we also require that our architects and contractors kind of demonstrate for us how they will assist us in kind of educating our students through internship opportunities, job shadow opportunities, speaking at various classrooms to do for like the CTE programs. And Gabby has spent quite a bit of time. I joined her one day. A lot of our contracting partners and architects have been joining her, doing kind of a road show in preparation for the summer 24 internship program. So it was the first chance I had to kind of do that at the district level, and it was pretty amazing just to like be able to share like each of our backgrounds and how we arrived at where we are in our careers. But with the goal of finding eight candidates that are going to be on our various teams this year. So it's pretty amazing what the schools are doing out there, and at the district level, you don't always get the ability to see that. So Gabby, how many classrooms did you visit over the last 3 weeks?
Too many to count. No, about like 10 to 12, I would say. It was a variety too. We made sure to go to variation all throughout the district. Definitely focused on CTE classrooms as well. The architecture firms and also contractors were very willing, and we had a lot of representation at every single classroom.
Yeah. So like I said, during our procurement process, we asked them to kind of demonstrate for us how they'll support us in that. And then we're early on in the overall bond cycle right now. So this is our first chance to kind of put them to the test and them be partnered with us. And we got 41 applicants, which last year we got 7.
I think we got 7. Our planning objective for this year was 10, so we definitely exceeded that.
Yeah. Yeah. So pretty exciting.
Okay, next one. The next couple I'm going to kind of punt on. So the next one was had to do with stakeholder engagement. So Gabby's going to talk a little bit about stakeholder engagement. Who are our stakeholders and how are we reaching out to them? And then the final board goal, bond accountability committee. The district will establish a bond accountability committee. So here we are. Nailed that one. Okay, that was it on the school board goals. That's every one of the goals. Any questions?
It's a really good list, and you know, kudos to the school board in putting this together. It's really comprehensive. Are there any of these goals that are, I mean, it's a good presentation in terms of how you're meeting the goals. Are there any that you're finding particularly challenging that you're struggling with?
Good question. You got me on the spot here. You know, business equity, I would say is a little bit hard. You know, we're close to it, like we're exceeding it, but 17 isn't, we're not like knocking it out of the park on that one, you know. And the last one, it was 10%, and we felt really good about that. And 15%, it's a little bit of a stretch, but we're doing it. And you know, specifically like Beaverton and Raleigh Hills. Raleigh Hills is actually a little bit below. Beaverton is a little bit above. So, you know, it's good to have to stretch for it. It's good for it to be a little bit uncomfortable.
And then just kind of a secondary question or follow-up to it. Have you had instances where the goals kind of compete with each other, and how do you, like, there's not a clear hierarchy here, so how do you manage it where the goals seem to, you can't satisfy all the goals, and you have to decide which ones are going to take priority?
Yeah, you know, certainly the first couple of slides I talked about, first costs versus life cycle cost is the hard one. You know, with what we do, it's, you know, primarily managing the construction project, right? So we tend to be looking more at first costs, but also recognizing that we're developing assets for the school district that are going to be around for 100 years, and being diligent enough to make sure that we're not compromising, making decisions that are going to, you know, cost someone else in the future down the road. So that's difficult to do sometimes.
Is there a process you have about how to strategize those or prioritize them, or is it take it as it comes?
Yeah, it's so wildly different on each project. But yeah, it's something, you know, we have regular meetings, Casey and Jeff and Eric and Jason and I and our maintenance department. We sit down and hash it out, and usually come to a really good solution.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, who's ready to hear about the OSIP? So I tried to get our insurance group that we work with, Marsh, to be here tonight, but they unfortunately had conflicts that they could not get out of. And I know you guys were waiting for this presentation, so I did not want to delay it another month. So I'm going to give it to you here tonight. Okay, OSIP, Owner Controlled Insurance Program. So this is new for us as a school district, relatively new to Oregon within the last 20 years or so, I would say. And it really came about on really large projects like the airport. I think it was kind of one of the first projects where they started doing the OSIP. The OSIP means, like I said, Owner Controlled Insurance Program, and you do that in lieu of each contractor on each project providing their own insurance. So for us, what we're doing is this is really just, it's the general liability insurance that we're providing. There's all sorts of different insurance. I listed a bunch of them up there. You can have an OSIP that includes all of those, but in our case, it's just general liability, and that's what made the most sense for us to do. Construction is a risky business. It's, you know, all sorts of possible things could go wrong that could impact the district and its finances. Our job is to make sure that the projects go smoothly and the risk is kind of contained within the parameters that we have for the project. You know, primarily meaning like our project budgets, for instance, and, you know, and schedules, and making sure things don't go beyond that to to create other operational impacts, right? And so insurance is just one of the tools that we use. And there's a variety of different insurance. Each of these different insurances covers different aspects of risk on a project. One of the things I'll note, insurance costs have been going up a lot lately. You guys have probably seen this in like your car insurance, just personally. Like, I don't know what it is, but something's going haywire out there with insurance costs, and we see it magnified on these construction projects. And one way we can help control those costs is through the OSIP. We have buying power by procuring this ourselves over a large range of projects. Why are we doing this? There's a
Real
few
fast,
reasons.
what was the reason not including builder's risk with that?
What we found was that I actually kind of listed it here on the next one. The risk should be managed by the entity best suited to deal with the risk. And to that point, one of the things we found was contractors got better pricing on the builder's risk insurance than we did. A lot of them have, especially the larger companies like Skanska, for instance, they have a national account and just they get better pricing.
Yeah.
The other ones all just have relationships with their insurance providers. General liability is a little different in that it lasts. There's a tail on it that lasts like 10 years. And so if there's a defect or something on the building 10 years out, the general liability insurance covers it. Builder's risk only covers literally the duration of construction. It stops at substantial completion.
Right.
And so that is, the general contractors have control to some extent over the scope of work within that builder's risk. General liability, that's not always the case. General liability involves injuries to third-party people, like, say someone getting hurt while walking on the sidewalk outside the project, or construction defects, things of that nature that might not have anything to do with the contractor, that might go well into the future, but we still have an interest in that, and us controlling that insurance, it'll be easier for us to make a claim in the future. Okay, so 3 primary benefits I wanted to talk about. Number 1, you get better and more consistent coverage. So obviously when we're buying the insurance, we're dictating the terms of the insurance. And when you're collecting insurance from contractors, what they'll give you is a certificate of insurance. I meant to put a picture in here, but I forgot. But it's like a one-page thing. It's very similar to what you have for your like personal auto insurance. It just lists, each of the different things that are covered, the limits and deductibles for each. That one-page document is really not enough to convey what your coverage is as far as your insurance goes. And so when we're doing dozens of projects, dozens of different contractors we're dealing with, collecting and reviewing all of those different insurance policies is really, really difficult. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of nuance to it. You really have to understand insurance very well to be able to look at those policies to ensure that we're getting everything that we are asking of them. And that takes time. And there's a lot of back and forth sometimes too, like, oh no, you forgot your pollution, it's not enough, or what have you. There's just a lot of nuance to it that we get to skip by having our own, by providing the insurance ourselves. Number 2, I would say that it is cheaper. So for the general liability, especially by buying it in bulk, if you will, for across all of our projects, the insurance companies, they're dealing with one person for dozens of projects. They give us better pricing. We get better pricing in the market by bundling so much work together. And it was really, really hard. I really wanted to do a good, apples to apples comparison with insurance in the last bond, but it really is very difficult to do. A lot of those insurance costs are baked into like subcontractor bids, for instance. And so there was no really good way to pull those out. We did in the last bond on one project, which was probably the best comparison. We did a CSIP on the Mount Side High School project. So it's a contractor-controlled insurance program. So the contractor on that project did all of the insurance. And comparing as a percentage of cost of work to that, I think the cost of our general liability insurance is about half of what it was in the last bond. So I think that's a really good thing. But like I said, relatively limited sample, although a large one. And the last point I kind of spoke to a little bit already, but it's faster contracting. When we are getting going, executing a contract, there's a lot of back and forth that goes into it, but it skips the whole insurance side of things and helps that be done quite a bit faster, reduces the workload required on both ends.
Aaron,
Oh, yep.
do I understand you that this now covers all of our projects?
Oh, you're going ahead of me. That's my next slide.
I'm sorry.
So it does not include all projects. I listed, actually, these are all the projects that are included in it. And there's about $460 million worth of projects included. So it's really the bulk of the project. It's really everything except the deferred maintenance projects, although some deferred maintenance projects are in here, and the modernization projects. So it's most of the projects.
And is going with this approach, will there be more administrative work on your part?
Yes, there is, yep. Specifically my part, that was a big surprise to me, yeah. There's a lot more work. I've learned a lot more about insurance than I ever expected to.
But the benefits offset that extra effort?
I'd say so, yeah. Joking aside, most of the administrative work is done by the insurance company, by Marsh. So there's a program administrator that works for Marsh that handles all of the enrollments. So when we kick off a project, say Raleigh Hills, we tell Pence, the contractor, here's the contact with Marsh. Set up a meeting with her. She's going to show you how to do all of the enrollment on the project. So the Marsh administrator has a list of all of our projects that are going on, when they're starting, who the contractor is, and as that happens, they get enrolled. So they take care of most of the work. But good question. That's kind of it on my OSIP presentation. We think it's a good thing. We think it's better coverage. That is my number one concern, quite honestly. Not concern. I think that's the number one benefit, having really good coverage across these projects. We also think it saves money and is quicker. We just started, yes.
So have you ever had, like, all these projects that you have you ever had a contractor saying that you guys don't have this insurance or any restricted?
Yeah, good question. When we solicited so moving forward, any projects that we solicit, we have a manual. I actually brought the manual for Beaver High School. We include the manual in the solicitation. Say, here's the coverage that we are offering. Take it or leave it, right?
Okay.
Some of them, like Beaverton specifically, were already in place when we executed the OSIP. So there was some back and forth as far as the terms of what's covered. Skanska is a really big company. They have all sorts of thoughts about insurance, and so it becomes a negotiation to make sure we both feel that the terms are fair.
Thank you.
The cost we saw for this, was that a project life cost or is that an annual cost for this program?
Which cost did you see? The from a few months ago?
Yeah.
That was the cost for the life of the bond. That's the cost for all these projects.
Okay, so that's not an annual, that will be.
Correct.
escalating.
That's a
Okay.
one-time thing. There will probably be an adjustment at the end. That was based on that $460 million number. So if that goes up or down, there will be a reconciliation. Okay, Gabby, you have a presentation. Who are our stakeholders?
Let me just preface this, why we ask for this comment or this presentation, Randy and I were going through, I think it was in the last report to the school board, and one of the items that they ask for is, are we communicating with the stakeholders? And I said, well, certainly, I know about the website and all of this, and Randy says, well, but who are the stakeholders? I said, let's find out. I knew Gabby would be able to shine some light on it, so I appreciate you going through this.
Did I turn off? Okay, there we go. It's on. Okay, yeah, no problem. Happy to help. So the way that I broke this down was internal and external stakeholders. So you can see at the top, we have students, school district and staff, school board members, and then externally, obviously, I won't run through all of them. You can read them. But I also wanted to add that Dick also emailed asking about the business community. And so I wanted to address that as well. The business community is a stakeholder, external as well. We're just engaged more with business leaders when it comes to kind of going out for a new bond. And the reason for that is like new schools, such as like the Beaverton High School rebuild, it just raises property values, obviously, for business owners. So it's a lot easier to engage with them when you say, hey, here's a pretty flashy new school, right? Versus when it's being constructed. And currently we do engage with them, obviously inviting them to groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, things like that. Also, we have some business leaders who engage with us on LinkedIn and who follow the district page. So they do get regular bond project milestones on there, as well as knowing different contract awards that are being announced. So I did want to make sure to address that in your follow-up email. And I guess I'll just give you a little bit of examples when it comes to each one of our stakeholders. So I'll go ahead and just start with students. So an example of how we would engage with them is just obviously with the Beaverton High School rebuild as an example, is just engagement sessions. So student-focused meetings, having like a clear way for them to give feedback, updating them, making sure that they know how we're incorporating that feedback is really important. Obviously, if we're asking for students to take time away, either from sports or extracurricular activities, we want to make sure that their input is valued. For school district and staff, we have internal newsletters that we use. So they get bond videos and updates are promoted here and sent to all staff throughout the district. So it gets directly to their inbox. They have links that they can easily click on, kind of make it as easy for them as possible. As for school board members, administrators and project managers can communicate with members during school board meetings. Example, also the bond website, updating it routinely, directing people to it. They're just checking up on it. It's there and they know how to access it. As for school district administrators, including the superintendent, there's a weekly superintendent email. You all don't get it, but we all get it in our inbox on Fridays. It's really great. It's basically a weekly update email, and it's sent to all staff. And he's mentioned the groundbreaking, for example, just different projects that the bond currently has underway. And so from there, we'll go to external stakeholders, essentially all of you, BAC members. And so how we're, so there we go, thank you. So how we're kind of keeping up with you all is just like meetings like this, having a direct line of communication, promoting transparency and offering opportunities for public comment. Social media, I know some of you follow our LinkedIn page, so it's great to see your faces on there as well. And events, some of you were at the groundbreaking of Beaverton High School. Thank you so much for attending, showing your support. As for community members, the way that we engage with them as well so they know about bond projects is videos and different graphics. So just posting those videos on social media so it's easy for them to know what's going on. And also just flyers for people to come to these BAC meetings. We put that on social media so they know that there's an easy channel for them to give feedback. As for parents and families, we have Parent Square. So that's essentially just a communications platform for a specific audience. So we can send a message directly to parents at a specific school. We've spoken about this before at different presentations. We can see when they're delivered, opened, or viewed, those messages, so we can kind of see what our retention rate is with them. And obviously social media, we look at the numbers, we see what's working, what's not working, what's driving engagement. I've mentioned that before with different posts, obviously with bond projects. But for other stakeholders like construction and architecture firms, basically LinkedIn is how we are kind of just engaging with them. I mentioned contract awards, bond project updates on there. We also share contractor and architecture firm posts as well, so they know that, we are also looking at what they're doing, making sure we're engaging with them. People can see that. As for members of the media, we do press releases, so informing them of coverage opportunities with bond projects, events, and also editorial pieces, which a lot of people don't know about. So, for example, I worked with the Cedar Mill News to print and publish an online article about the rebuild of Beaverton High School. So we're making sure that we're engaging with people, not just obviously in new forms like LinkedIn, social media, things like that, but maybe older kind of media, legacy media that people of older generations would be more kind of inclined to read. So we're making sure that we're trying to target different people, both internally and externally, when it comes to stakeholders. But that was pretty much it. I know that Dick told me to keep it brief, so I'm trying to do that. Do you all have any questions for me, though? I'm happy to answer them.
Hey, Gabby, do you have any feedback or statistics to let you know which one of these ways is working, what it is, what isn't working, to get feedback from the stakeholders on what their hot buttons are, what they're interested in, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the way that I kind of craft it is looking at kind of informal and formal feedback. And so informal would be like, having conversations like these and making notes of it, what did you like, what didn't you like? And then more formal would be looking at like, specific numbers, right? So it's like a Facebook post got X amount of views, how does that break down over time? Things like that. So we're looking at concrete numbers, but we also look at informal feedback. I believe both are really great in kind of evaluating when it comes to like a certain communications plan. So that's another thing that we do, is that we take the time to evaluate. So for example, with the groundbreaking of Beaverton High School, we sent out just a quick survey to just internally, just to say, hey, what worked, what didn't work, what did you like, what didn't you like? That way we can do a better job when it comes to, for example, the groundbreaking of Raleigh Hills. So we're kind of taking the time to do that. Also, different teams kind of go about it different ways. The Beaverton High School rebuild has a different way of, getting feedback from people that are part of, engagement opportunities. So it's kind of being able to coordinate that a little bit. And so that's kind of the way that we go about it, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Because also for us, we want to make sure that we're serving students and the public in the best way. So we don't kind of want to be throwing something and seeing if it works. Obviously, we'll do that to be innovative, but at the same time, we want to be looking at numbers and kind of seeing what directly stuck with people.
Thank you very much, Gabby.
All right, last on our agenda here is going through the good stuff, the financial report. So I'm going to have Jason actually run through the report here, and I'll try to keep up. So
I think when you click that, I think there's a present button.
can you read that?
I think it's
Oh,
that
okay.
one in there.
There we go. Good eyes.
I was just guessing there. All right, so we'll start with the executive summary. Sorry, I guess there's a cover sheet. So cover sheet has just some general stats on where we stand right now. So we have 71 projects underway, about $412 million in commitments. Our current budget's about $768 million, and we've paid about $75 million out in the bond. And then you can see at the bottom the uncommitted budget. Next slide. So for our executive summary, this quarter we realized about $2 million in interest on bond sales that had already been realized. From a schedule perspective, these are just some highlights here. We'll go into some more detail on projects as we proceed through it. But Beaverton High School started foundations in April. Aloha High School wrapped up their construction project April 1st, and staff is in and using the building. And the furniture standards are complete. which is great news for a lot of our projects. Some challenges and opportunities. So we went through an exercise, I guess about a month and a half ago, with our teams to identify risks and how we were going to mitigate them for the summer projects. And so that was a helpful exercise, especially considering that we have some complicated seismic projects going on this year. So great exercise, and the teams are now executing plans related to that. As far as other challenges, we mentioned this maybe a few months ago. We continue to have challenges getting building permits in a timely fashion. And we'll touch on those on the specific projects where we're having those challenges as we go through it. But it's a problem that we believe we had addressed, and then when it continues to drag on, you realize we're still challenged by it. Financial statement. So I won't go through these in any real detail, except to point out that as we have done in the past, if there is a yellow highlighted line, that is a change to the budget. So we either moved money into the project or we moved money out of the project. In most cases, this is because in most cases it's school modernization, and we do this because we will maybe realize that we can bundle a carpet project with other carpet projects and execute a single contract versus executing them on different contracts. So a lot of movement will happen within those. And then the other big area is deferred maintenance. So again, as we're developing project charters for maybe a seismic project, we'll identify that there's a deferred maintenance project that could be bundled with that to simplify the execution of the project. So that's the vast majority of the highlights in this report. As a reminder, the gray highlighted lines are completed projects that we'll continue to leave on this report, but we won't really kind of talk about those or show any budget changes because they've wrapped up. The other big change to this report this month is that we had been I guess maybe the word would be hiding, in that we hid the cells for projects that had not started up yet. But I think there had been a request to have a little more visibility into the projects that were coming. So this report's a little longer now, so you can see all those projects, and any maybe unallocated funds that are in those buckets are now visible. So if you have follow-up questions, just let us know.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You may have mentioned this, I missed it. What is an OSCIM grant related to Raleigh Hills?
So this is a state grant. It's called the Awesome Grant. And it was something that we've known about for years, actually. It's something you apply for with the state. It's kind of a matching grant fund when you pass the bond. So we have got like pre-approved with the state. How much was it for? $8 million?
That's good. And
it's provided by the state as a.
It says it was included in the original budget for Raleigh Hills, and I don't remember that, but,
Oh, yeah, that's never changed. That's always been in there.
okay.
Yep, it was even included in the bond language, I think, when we went out for the election. It was just something we knew about, and it went towards the Raleigh Hills project.
Thank you.
I think in one of the prior meetings, you said that the state money is there are too many people going after that.
Yeah, that was not the Awesome Grant money. That was the SRGP grant money.
Okay.
So that's the Seismic Rehabilitation
Okay.
Grant Program, and yeah, that one has a lot more demand than supply for funding there.
So for the seismic funding, I remember that you said that there was some federal funding available and you guys were working on it. Is there any status on that?
No, it's something we're looking into. I don't know if there is grant money available. There's this infrastructure package, so we were just talking about it today, as a matter of fact. We're looking into it. I don't have any clear answers on that right now, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Next slide. One more after this. All right, and then, so in addition to showing the report where we show where we've made changes, we've summarized it in the contingency transfer report. So this just documents, since the beginning of the bond, any changes related to contingency. And this month, the only change is the interest earned going into the program reserves. All right. Equity report, hopefully we'll spend a little bit of time here this week. If you can't see it, the screen may lend itself to that. So as I maybe mentioned, maybe 2 months ago when we met with the group at Aloha High School, we had been in the process of reworking the equity report. Prior to January, we were realizing the equity piece of our contracts when we sign the contract. And we changed that to when we make a payment, we're realizing those equity numbers. And like I mentioned in the past, that allowed us to kind of even things out, so we don't have wild swings when we sign a contract. It also was an advantage because when we're doing CMGC jobs, there's a lot of times when you haven't necessarily bought out that work when you sign the contract. So that's the big change here. As you can see, we're pretty steady at around 17-18%. We've started collecting additional data. So the pie chart on the left-hand side of the page starts to break down the various categories that we use in Oregon to certify organizations. And we're doing this in an effort. We think at some point the board is going to ask the question, like, well, where are most of our folks that are certified coming from? Like, what are their backgrounds? And so this allows us a little more. We're trying to think ahead here to get more granular on the data. This doesn't include like critical equipment or technology or infrastructure like that, because those are not. You can't buy MacBooks from an organization that is not Apple, right? So there's certain things we don't have a lot of control over, and so we're really accounting for those that we can work within those parameters. Any questions around the equity piece? I think we mentioned before, a lot of the ways that we're trying to manage this is through proactive communication with our contractors and our consultants, and I think that's paying off pretty well. I think as we continue to progress with this and build the relationships with these partners, it should make things easier in years to come as we try to attain this.
Jason, on that pie chart on the other page there,
Yeah.
can you I'm reading what the explanation is for uncategorized, but I still don't understand it. So what does the uncategorized mean? Does that
And
mean
why is it so much, right?
Yeah.
So we drew a line and said anything before
this is the
January
rework?
1st.
Okay.
We couldn't go back to our partners. Some of the projects were closed out,
Yeah.
right? They were complete, like Sato was complete. So we had to say, okay, we're going to have these uncategorized, and it's going to be anything that was maybe everything prior to that we couldn't account for.
Got it.
If it was something that was still an active contract, we managed to get them to update that and give us that data. The other thing is that there are some categories that are Washington-based, so Washington calls something different than what we call it, and so we couldn't have 20 items for them to pick from, so we had to say anything from Washington's uncategorized.
So it could be a certified firm, it could be a non-certified firm sitting in that bucket of uncategorized, or they are all categorized?
All have to be categorized.
Okay.
So they're uncategorized is sort of like, it doesn't fall into our standard bucket.
But it is a certified firm
right.
of some sort.
So in Washington, like we have a lot of architects over the river, and they call things differently than we do.
Yep. Okay, and then one other question, I'll leave you alone. Within the construction scopes, was there any scopes, like, for instance, elevators, that's getting excluded from the calculation, or you guys are going
No.
all the way?
No, if it's construction, if we've signed a contract like with Skanska or Pence, every dollar of that contract counts towards this.
Got it. Cool.
It's any construction contract
Yeah.
is counting towards this, even if it's a small one that we weren't. It was hard bid and we had no control. It still counts towards this. So you can imagine that if like Raleigh Hills is just under the goal. That means that we're having to proactively work with other organizations to try to influence the direction they're headed to try to meet the goal.
Got
So
it.
it can't be just passive. We have to approach it proactively.
That's great. And I just note for the committee, there's sometimes within these programs, other agencies will exclude some construction scopes where, elevators is a great example because there is no certified firms
Sure.
that do elevators. And so it's an understandable exclusion, but I would just point that out because there's a significant amount of dollars that, other agencies might be reporting, the percentages are higher, but they're excluding large sums of money. So it's an ambitious goal for the district just to include the whole thing. And
We didn't
go
even know
after
we
it.
could do that.
What's that? You can. Next bond.
I think what we do is, I think the approach we've taken is let's count it all.
Yeah.
And we can qualify it by explaining like, hey, we're at 17 or 18%, but we haven't excluded anything. And for folks who are in the industry, that speaks volumes
It's
to
meaningful.
what we're doing.
Yeah, it really is. So
Yeah.
kudos.
Yeah, but definitely something Dick can share in his report to
Yeah.
the board. All right, the next sheet, this is the first month that we're presenting the apprenticeship hours in this way. And I would expect over the next couple of months as we work with our partners, we're starting in, our accounting team is starting to audit all of our certified payroll uploads process for us over the last, 18 months since this 22 bond started. So we're auditing that to try to get it reconciled and make sure everything is meeting our objectives. So what you're seeing here, you're seeing the monthly swing, and that's more, you can imagine as a project ramps up, or a project is in an early phase, you may not have as many apprenticeship hours because there aren't as many tradespeople on the site. So the monthly swings are likely to continue swinging, but the green line, I think, is really where we should focus our attention because that's our cumulative average as we work through our projects. So I would say either next month or when we see you guys again after summer, we'll have more data related to this, and we'll be able to start proactively managing that conversation with our partners as well.
One question on this. Are you, as the district, using a system for this like B2G, or are you managing this in-house?
We manage this in-house.
Oh
So
my, okay.
a lot of what, just like the equity numbers, a lot of what we do is through our project management software, eBuilders, what we're using. And our staff has the ability to kind of program processes and format it how we want to see it. So that's part of the reason that the data is not very sophisticated this month because we're in the process of evaluating what we want that to look like and how we want to present that out to you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'm going to skip this slide. I actually didn't mean to even include this in the presentation, and we're not going to be including it moving forward. And I'll show you why here on the next slide. Came up with a good idea. Oops. So in talking with Dick and Randy about a clear way to indicate kind of a scorecard, overall status for each project, we've come up with this little box here, which it shows, where are we at as far as the status of the schedule and budget, and what is the schedule and budget for each project, and we can track those. If there's any adjustments moving forward, we'll certainly highlight those on here, including, what was the original schedule and the updated schedule, or original budget and updated budget. And we'll keep that in just these little boxes here on the project highlights for everything.
Do we know why they're being delayed, the foundation permits?
Foundation permits, kind of based on some of the roads we were delayed with that. We got it issued.
Yeah, so we made this report was written like 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, we now have the permit and we're now underway.
So we got the permit late, but we do have the permit.
Was there a reason that, is it city or county that issuing the foundation permit?
City.
What's the issue? Why was there what did they give you as the reason why? There aren't that many projects in the city of Beaverton.
The primary reason I think is just staffing levels, and then staff and how long they've been in their positions is mostly what we see. Is they have vacancies and then they have newer staff members or not as senior staff members, which are as skilled at reviewing plans, is kind of what it boils down to. So, and we don't have any way to, if they say, hey, we've talked about having a permit issued by a certain date, there's no way for us to enforce that date. nor will they commit to giving us something by a certain date, because there's always certain things that go along with, they can't say, oh, you need it by the 15th, we're going to get it by the 15th, right? But they do try to get us there. But we do continue to struggle with the city to, it's a slog. We get through it. We haven't had any delays to the project, but we have had timelines exceeded that were understood with the city and then have been exceeded. But the project continues. We've been able to manage without delays, but it continues to be, for instance, an example just for you guys, we submitted the full building permit February 12th, and the city hasn't even opened it and started looking at it yet, right? So we would assume that review would be in process, but it's not. And so what we do, we have bi-weekly coordination meetings with them. We review all of our timelines in those meetings. We get status updates. Of course, we both are emailing and calling our respective, depending on what permit it is, trying to push it through. But it is a struggle, and I think you guys want to hear a little bit about the challenges, and that's definitely a challenge we both face, especially with these big projects, is getting them through. So,
Has the city given you a focal point?
For
this project?
a direct contact.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure. We have direct contact with them. It depends
one
on-
person.
We don't have one person because there's different divisions. Are we talking site development? Are we talking land use? Are we talking the building division? So yeah, we have individual contacts for each one of those that we can reach out to, and we do that.
And every other week, we have a meeting with kind of the head of all those departments, and we talk about both Beaverton and Raleigh Hills, and then we sprinkle in a couple other projects that we might want to talk with them about. But we do have regular standing meetings with them, and they participate in it, and
Do they consider, Bearden consider this a priority project? Or is it just a project?
You'd have to ask them that.
Well, I will.
I'll tell you, it's a problem. I'm not going to sit here and point fingers entirely at the city. There's a significant labor shortage when it comes to qualified plans examiners. I bet if you went and looked on their website, they're hiring a dozen positions for plans reviewers. It's just, there's never enough people to do this work. And like they mentioned, sometimes when you find someone who, can do the work, they might not have a ton of experience in the work either. And it creates a real headache. Same thing could be said of our architects in many cases. The issue is not 100% on the jurisdiction. Sometimes these drawing sets that get submitted, they aren't what they should be, and there's a lot of back and forth, and it's a long process. And when you don't have the right qualified people sitting there looking at it, it takes even longer. And we keep on backing up these timelines for when we're submitting these projects, and it's never enough.
Yeah, well, I know I worked with Aloha High School to get a flagpole put in for 4 months.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And the person they assigned it to us used to cut grass.
Do any of these delays put us in jeopardy for claims from the contractor?
They haven't yet.
No.
No,
Not yet.
no, not for permits. No. We've been able to keep up enough that we haven't got there.
Okay, well, I think that's it for Beaverton High School. Except we do have a foundation permit. Foundation permit gives us quite a few months of work we can do on the project.
Yeah, so we have the foundation permit. We have pretty much all of our building pad is now excavated and the base rock is down. We actually will starting foundations this week, and our underground utilities is happening now that we have that permit. So the work is moving on really well. Having this big break in weather while we're out working in the dirt was a huge help to us because we weren't dealing with mud.
That's good.
Right, so that helped us. It was like perfect timing that we got in there and got to get all of that base in to start the building. So that part is going well.
Yeah, I should add, we do have a publicly available webcam for Beaverton right now, which you can, maybe I'll send out the link.
Yeah.
Should have done that already, but yeah, you can go check it out. It's all rocked and it's beautiful. Cement treated and everything.
Jeff, just generally speaking, when are you expecting vertical structure to start, which is it like Christmas time or, Q4 this year? Or?
Yeah, it's not gonna be till Q4,
Okay.
maybe, yeah.
I just drive by, so I just want to know when to expect to start see, structure.
We're gonna be working on foundations through September, October, so.
Some beautiful
Yep. some new
renderings.
Updated renderings.
That would be the gym, obviously, and then the dance studio.
All right. So for Raleigh Hills, the team's still continuing to reconcile the GMP with the construction documents. I think that's going pretty well at this point. They're in for permit right now. It's the same jurisdiction, although they have a little more time on their hands because they have to demolish the existing building, and that'll start after students move out at the in middle of June. And then let's see, land use was submitted for the portables and the new parking lot over at Greenway. So that's some improvements are being made in order to have both schools co-located at that single site. And then the hard hat sticker, I don't know if you've seen this yet. This is pretty new. It's kind of cool. So that's there on the screen.
It's a fierce,
Fears?
fierce, yeah, fierce something, panther. To add on to what Jeff said with their fire life safety review for BHS, it took about 4.5 months before we got our first review on Raleigh Hills. So we got that review and it's back in now. Our responses are back to the city. They're not taking any longer at this point anyway on BHS than they did on Raleigh Hills, for what that's worth.
Part of the discussion, I know, through the design, as you know, was a request that some things be salvaged and incorporated. Is that going along as planned?
Yep. Yeah, we've got a salvage list, items that the contractor is planning to salvage during demo. Yeah.
All right. Next project is Stoller Middle School. So this is in a different jurisdiction than Beaverton High School and Raleigh Hills, but the project is also just challenged with some permitting related durations in Washington County. So again, just I know you guys want to kind of hear it. We know that it's never completely clean, but we're just having some permitting challenges at this point. They were submitted in late November, and I know the team continues to track it with them. I think some of the tricky parts for that have also been related to utility connections and PGE and some changes to code related items that they're working through right now. So getting temporary electrical up and running is part of that. Construction will start in May, and then substantial completion is about 11 months later. Aloha, so this looks like a rendering. Oh no, it's not a rendering. There's actually a guy up on a ladder there, but it looks very much like a rendering that I would have seen months ago. So Aloha is all but complete. At this point, it's really punch-related items. Staff has been in there working since April 1st. And if you've been over there or haven't been, you should definitely check it out. It's a really great space for them and really offers them the ability to modify other spaces within the school to support the students.
So the discovery of, what was it, a
The
pipe
concrete
or whatever, and then the overtime to make up for that didn't affect our budget at all?
No, the cost related to the concrete pipe was, we were able to cover that with the project contingency. Some of the overtime related to the concrete issues were quality related items for the contractor to resolve. They didn't impact our project. I think there were some weather related items we had to deal with, but as far as I understand, we'll complete within the project budget that you see on the screen. So
We used up the contingency though, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
So Josh,
Good.
when I look at this front page, like these,
Uh-huh.
you're explaining that the yellow part is if there is a budget transfer or something.
Uh-huh.
I see 985,000 was transferred from contingency,
Uh-huh.
and then 400,000 for Westview High School, but they are not highlighted.
So those would have been changes, so when they're highlighted yellow, it's on the month in which they occur. So
Okay.
those would have been changes that occurred like maybe 12 months ago. So we don't keep highlighting it yellow, or you probably would have a fully yellow report. But that's why that's why the transfers that are on the other report are sort of like, they go back to the very beginning of the bond.
The contingency transfer.
Yeah, that's right.
And the other budget transfer. So what was the reason for Westview that they need the $400,000 additional from the?
Are you're talking about the Westview Stadium turf replacement?
No, the office relocation, high school office relocation. They had a 2.5.
Oh, the 400,000, the other budget transfer. I think that was the modernization. We were going to include some of the modernization work in the Westview High School office, and so we combined those two. So that 400,000 would have come. There should be a deduct on the Westview modernization.
And then for the 985,000, it was because of the pipe and all that stuff.
No, so the 985,000. If you look on the contingency transfer sheet, which I can show you here. It occurred in January of. So looking on this sheet here, it's item number
6.
Item number 6. So, sorry, that's really hard to see.
3/6/23.
Yeah, 3/6 of 23. So that was at the time of the establishing the contract with the general contractor for the project. So that was, obviously like a year ago, but that happened just when we got bids on the project.
So
And that-
if this was done like in 24, would our OCIM cover this kind of pipe? and all that stuff?
Tell me more what you mean by that, the OCAM.
The insurance, our own insurance.
Okay, so this what you're looking at, the 985,000. This was a budget transfer. It was a contingency use. So the cost for the project, and we had the general contractor on board. The cost for the project increased, or it was $985,000 above what we had originally budgeted. So the contingency paid. Deputy Superintendent Carl Mead authorized that transfer of contingency into that project in order to be able to execute the contract. It wouldn't have anything to do with the insurance program.
There's nothing wrong with the pipe or anything.
No.
No, this was before that.
Yeah.
This was just based on contractor bids.
Okay.
The bids were more than we expected, so we had to allocate contingency. But no, and the insurance wouldn't cover unforeseen conditions like that anyways. That's a contingency use item. It would more be if.
Clear about why the money went up that much. So, but thank you for explaining.
Yep,
that.
no problem. Okay, that pretty much covers it for the meat of our updates here. Unless anybody had any questions on anything else. Okay, that does it for our presentation. Is there any questions? And also up on the screen here, I listed the dates for the meetings for next year. So one thing we talked about doing a little bit differently is taking a couple of the meetings we have planned for next year and actually doing tours instead of, these sit-down meetings. We will literally, we'll have a school bus pull up out front and we'll all jump on the school bus and we'll have an itinerary and we'll go hit all the projects and we'll narrate, as we, I'll get on the microphone on the bus and talk as we drive around, and we'll do that in the fall, and then again in the spring at the end of the year. So that would take up 2 of the meetings, and essentially it spaces out these meetings to where we're not having back-to-back months. They're essentially once a quarter. So any questions? What do you think about the schedule? Any topics you want us to cover next month? Our meeting is in May.
Aaron, one topic for next month would be to summarize what your summer programs are going to be. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about, 3 or 4 months that we're not going to be meeting. If you can tell us what's happening during that time, that would help.
Absolutely. Good one.
Permits?
Permit updates. Okay.
That might be worthwhile. That seems to be the.
3 or 4 months, they'll finally get a permit.
No. Any other topics for next month? If you think of something, send Aaron a note within the next week, because May 29th is going to come around quickly.
Yes, it will. Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, is there anything we can do to help with any of the permits, but any of our contacts that we may still have, or just stay out of it?
Honestly, I don't think so. You can just have it. I appreciate it and thank you, but no.
I know when Beaver and Flores moved from their location down 2 blocks from Beaver to High School over to off of Nimbus, you had to get the mayor involved to get a permit. For something very, very, very simple.
Yeah.
And he's on the Chamber of Commerce Committee,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's tough.
so I feel for you guys. I really
Appreciate
do.
it.
Anything else for the good of the order? A good meeting. You covered a lot of material. Thank you very much.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.